Hey, what's up everyone? In this video, we're going to be talking about SEO bad, in air quotes, bot blocking. So these are the bots that are used for SEO purposes that you may or may not want hitting your website, crawling your data, and that sort of thing. Okay, so sometimes these bots are useful. You take it on a business by business case. That's why I'm putting the word bad in air quotes, okay? So we're going to get into what that's all about. And as it relates to that, we're going to talk about crawl budget, the robots.txt file, what is that all about? And then we're going to look at my recommendations for how to configure that robot.txt file, okay? All right, so first up is the bad, in air quotes, bots. Search engine optimization, SEO, bad in air quotes, I'm going to keep saying that. Bots crawl and index website data for usage within their software. Okay, so that's primarily what we're talking about here. So think of those SEO tools where an SEO agency might use a tool to go out and check keywords, check content, rankings, all of that sort of thing. Software programs like that, SaaS applications, for example. Those are, unless you're using those tools yourself or you have hired a company to use those tools against your website, then those tools are considered bad at that point because they are of no use to you, okay? They are just taking up your server resources for their own purpose and they're not doing you any good, okay? They're actually helping your competition try to beat you, okay? So that's why we call them bad bots in this case. So examples I have listed here again are Ahrefs, SEMrush, tools like that. Unless you use the specific SEO software yourself or you've hired someone to do so, you should block these bots. Crawl budget. Very simply, crawl budget is the amount of time and resources search engine bots allocate to crawling your website and indexing its pages. So let's just take Google, for example. They're going to go out and they've got these little software bots that run in the background. They've got what they call a crawl budget. It's a certain amount of resources and time they are going to devote to your website to go out and see what are the new listings, what are the new pages, what are the new posts, and they've got, once they've maxed out that allotted time, they leave and they go on to the next site and then the next site and then the next site. So if that crawl budget is being spent by these bad bots, then you are potentially losing out on getting your most important content crawled and indexed. There's that competition that's going on. These bots are all fighting for your website's attention, its resources, okay? So that's crawl budget. Robots.txt is a file that informs search engine bots about the pages or files that should or should not be crawled on your website. So back to that crawl budget, Google hits your site. They look for a robots.txt file as a directive for what they should do, how they should crawl your site. It's not a requirement. It's just a way, this file is a way for you to fine tune what the directives that you want these search engines to take on your site, okay? Physical versus virtual robots.txt. Physical robots.txt files take precedence over virtual robots.txt. We're gonna get into the virtual and configuring a virtual robots.txt file in this video. Virtual robots.txt files are easier to manage. So within tools like SEOPress, which is what we're going to use in this video, it's not to say that you have to use SEOPress. You could use your SEO tool of choice. There's also plugins that are just for configuring virtual robots.txt file. I'm just going to call it robots.txt file from here on out. It's just easier to say. Okay. So again, physical robots text files take precedence over a virtual file. Virtual robots text files are easier to manage. Some hosts automatically add a physical robots text file to your server. So if you browse the files on your server, you may find a robots text file on there, and it may or may not be configured with certain rules. So you need to check that. I have a note here that says Kinsta does not. I host all my sites with Kinsta. All my client websites are hosted with Kinsta. A lot of MyListing Club members host their sites on the club's Kinsta plan. If any of those fall, if your website falls under any of those, you do not have to worry about that physical robots text file coming into play. It doesn't exist. You could create one if you wanted to, but there's no need to if you just use the virtual robots text file. Okay, so totally up to you how you want to go about that, but I want to make that special note that Kinsta does not have that file, so nothing to worry about there. SEOPress Pro. You need the Pro version of SEOPress to create and manage the virtual robots text file. Okay, and it's very easy to do, which you will see in this video, or use the tool of your choice, like I said. Recommendations. To illustrate the recommendations, we'll use SEOPress Pro, which I've already got installed on a MyListing sandbox site. We're going to configure that virtual robots text file with my recommendations. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and move this over to my other screen just so I can reference it, and then we're going to configure that here in SEOPress Pro. All right, so we're looking at the dashboard of SEOPress. We're going to come down here and we're going to toggle on robots.txt. We're then going to click the Manage button. Okay, so with that now toggled on, we can go over here and we can enable the robots.txt virtual file. Okay, now we're set up with a blank robots.txt file at this point, at this stage, and we can configure it however we want. So I'm going to run through a few things here. So I'm going to do what I call my required inclusions that are just non-negotiables, then my recommended inclusions, then optional inclusions at the very end. So those three categories. Okay, so first up in the recommendations, we're going to enable the virtual robots.txt, which we've done, and configure the following at a minimum. The default WP rules is the first one there. So that's this one right here. We're just going to click on that button. Boom, it drops in what we need. Okay. This is simply saying that when you do a star after user agent, that's saying like all of the bots. That means it's applying to every bot out there. We're saying disallow for this particular directory and anything beneath it. So the WP admin directory, but we are going to make a specific allowance for this particular file. Okay, admin-ajax.php. These are the default WP rules, best practices, requirement. Okay. Next up is you want to add a link to your actual sitemap here. So for that, we click on, where's it at here? Link to your sitemap. Okay, so that just drops in that full link to your sitemap. And if we just quickly go out here to that, we can see that SEOPress creates us a nice sitemap, and that is actually not the right one. It's probably because I don't have it turned on. Anyway, different discussion. If I had that turned on within and configured properly within SEOPress, I'll just actually show you that real quick here. If I had that turned on and configured, we would have a different screen there. Okay, so I'm going to turn that on real quick and toggle this on. This is getting a little outside of what we're doing here, but I want to show you that it actually works and what it does. Okay. All right, so now if we go back here, we'll just copy that link. We can actually go to it from this screen too. Just click on that link. And there we go. This has yet to build, so this will be populated. So it's not a problem there. You go through and you configure what you want to show up in here. So if I do that now, just really quickly, we should see those sitemaps start to build, and there we go. Okay. Anyway, just a side tangent there. I wanted to show you what that does, that it is actually working. So not a problem. So we want to put that link to our sitemap in there so it tells those search engines or whatever the bots that you want to allow, hey, here's my sitemap. This is This is how I want you, this is the structure, this is how I want you to crawl this, that sort of thing. You're giving them an easy directive into where your content, your important content lies, okay? Okay, and another little side tip here, pro tip, if your website is multilingual, add the sitemap link for each language. So for example, you could come in here and copy that line, paste that line in. And let's say like you had Spanish, you could do ES. So you've got that, depending on how you implement your multilingual strategy, this may vary, but let's just say that we've got this subdirectory here, which is a Spanish subdirectory. And then you would do it like that. And it wouldn't be sitemaps, plural. It would probably just be sitemap singular like that. And you would do that for each of your languages. So that's a pro tip, okay? Just adjust this for each language. That'd be another language and so on and so forth, okay? But this we're just operating with the default language of this site. So that's what this is pulling in. Okay, now let's move on to optional inclusions. This is where, recommended inclusions. Next one up here is, and I do this on all my sites, and because we are WooCommerce people here, users with MyListing websites, then we use WooCommerce, right? So we want to block, and I would actually, personally, I would consider this required, but I have it listed as recommended here because it's not actually required. But we want to block add to cart links in WooCommerce, okay? So that's going to drop in that directive right there. Having these indexed can cause duplicate content since the primary page, i.e. the product link without the question mark, add to cart, query at the end of it is already indexed. Okay, so this is what we're disallowing right here, this part of the URL. So a product has a URL, right? Just like a page, a post, a listing. But when you have this appended to it, this add to cart directive, Google's going to see that as the same content and it's going to consider it as duplicate content, and you could get penalized for it, okay? Another reason you want to disallow this, to block this, is because you want to free up that crawl budget to crawl more important content on your site, okay? So that's the importance of that one. Next up is the block RSS feeds. So we're going to click this button right here, and it's going to drop in a bunch of directives. You'll notice here that we've got all kinds of feeds, and we've got comments / feed here. So there's a lot of directives here. What I want to stress here is that this does not disable RSS feeds on your website. So no worries there. What this is doing is allowing RSS feeds, or preventing RSS feeds from being crawled, because it's not necessary to crawl these feeds, because your content, again, like it's your blog posts, your listings, your pages, whatever, and your sitemap are already being crawled for indexing. So there's no need to crawl the feeds, okay? So if you want to know what that is, let's go here. Let's go to the front end of the site. And then let's just put RSS at the end of it. Well, I've got it turned off, so you won't see that in there. But if you were to look at the RSS, actually, you know what it is? It's feed. I think it's just feed. I may have typed that in wrong. Let's see. Let me just Google this real quick. WordPress default RSS feed URL. What is it? What is it? Yeah, it's just feed. I think I have got this turned off. Try one more time here. Yeah, I've got this disabled. Okay. So anyway, you would see a feed is just it's pretty much like an archive page. If you've ever seen an archive page, like an author page or whatever, that is not that doesn't have a template thrown at it, or you can design it and filter however you want. It's just a basic feed page. Let me see. Maybe I can show you on the club. I'd love to show you what I'm talking about here. Yeah, it's not a big deal. Anyway, you just gotta trust me. You don't need to crawl this. It's just not a page. It's not a feed. Is not a thing that you need to crawl. Okay. Again, we're not disabling your actual RSS feeds. All right, so let's move on to optional inclusions. This is what I started to say earlier. This is where the real confusion comes in for my clients. Okay. And to be completely honest, there were some of these that I just, I thought I knew like for sure what they were, but I had to do a little bit of research, get a little clarification on some things myself. So I wanted to make sure I was clear on it so I could educate people on it. So I even did a quick reach out to SEOPress support, and they responded back immediately with some helpful information. So let's go ahead and dive into this. Block Chat GPT. So that's this one right here. So what you're going to see is a theme, an ongoing theme as we go through some of these first ones here. And a lot of these have to do with AI. So I'm going to break down what each of these kind of does and what category they kind of fall into. ChatGPT, you're probably familiar with it by now. If you haven't heard about it, you're living under a rock. It's AI. So if you do not block ChatGPT's bot, your website will be training their AI, their language model, their database, however you want to word it. Okay. You have to weigh the pros and cons of this. Do you want your website content training their models where you could potentially, your data, your information could show up for people that are using ChatGPT? There are potential benefits to that. Okay. It could lead to something, people discovering your website. Okay. The downside to that is maybe a couple downsides. One, maybe you don't want to be included in that. Maybe they have cached in their database inaccurate data that you no longer want people to see. More important, as what based on what we're doing right here in this video, is crawl budget. If you don't block them, they are going to use your crawl budget. Okay, your resources. They're going to tax your server. They're going to use your server's resources to feed their databases. Okay. So you have to weigh those options. When I present that in my own head, I just immediately, I'm going to block ChatGPT. The cons far outweigh the pros. And when I present this to clients, I don't even persuade them. I just give them the information, the education, and they always have me block these bots when I give them that information. Okay, next up is Block Bard. This is Google's version of ChatGPT AI. Okay, we block that too. I block that. Next up is Pedalbot. This was one of those I had to do a bit of research on and find out what the hell this thing was. I'd never even heard of it. I just, based on not ever hearing about it, I assumed like, I definitely don't need this. I need to block it. But I wanted to make sure. So I went out there. This is a search engine. It's also got an AI component. So think of it like ChatGPT and Bard. It's a similar thing. Pedalbot is not a search engine. That is used. It's not even on if you go look at the stats counter, there's a website you can go to called Stats Counter, where like you can see the market share of search engines, browsers being used, screen resolutions, all of that type of stuff. If you look at the percentage of people using Pedalbot on that website, which is the go-to website resource for that kind of stuff, it's not even on there. It's not even a blip on the radar. So I block it. Not even looking back, block it. All right, SEMrush. So that's this one right here, SEMrush bot. SEMrush is a SaaS SEO application, like I mentioned earlier. Unless you are using SEMrush yourself or you've hired a company to work on your SEO and they are using SEMrush, block this bot. That is my recommendation. Okay. Ahrefs, same exact thing. If you're not using Ahrefs and the company that you're working with is not using Ahrefs, I would consider blocking this. Next up is Majestic Bot. This is a search engine. It's the same as Pedalbot. It is not even on the radar as far as it's not anywhere on the radar. It's not out there. From my research, it is a highly specific search engine. So block it. Next up is block search engine results. And this one, I really wanted to make sure everything was clear on this one. So that's this one right here, block search results. This is not to be confused with blocking search engines themselves. This directive blocks the following: all URLs whose path includes /?s equals. Okay, so let's go here. And I'm just going to type this in so you can visually see what I'm talking about. So any path that has like a /?s equals, okay, this is what's known as a dynamic page. Okay, so that is what you want to block. You don't want your crawl budget being used to crawl dynamic pages that are not even going to help your SEO. Okay, so these are highly dynamic pages. The content changes. You can just assume those pages are going to constantly change. The data on those are going to constantly change. Okay, so that's that. Next up is path includes. I think I forgot to put something in there. Anyway, we'll skip to the next one. All URLs whose paths begin with /search. Okay, so an example of this would be, let's see if I just do it. Yeah, nothing's going to come up for this one, but again, like a search, there's no SEO value in search, right? It's dynamic. It's like going to explore page, for example. So I always preach like these are not that great of pages for SEO because it's dynamic. You see right here? Yeah, this is a good example. See that question mark in the URL? These are dynamic pages. They have very little SEO value. They are used for filtering and searching and getting you where you need to go. That's why I had all these add-ons created for like when you click here into the category or the region of the preview card footer, we want to go to a landing page for the region, a landing page for the category, that sort of thing. That's where the SEO value comes in. So allowing bots to crawl these search pages is no bueno. You don't want them to use that crawl budget for that. Okay, there was another directive here, and I'm missing what that is. So I'll have to go find it. And if I find it, I'll put it in the description notes of the video. But I think you see my point here. It's just, it's not very helpful. Search result pages are expensive to generate. So telling bots not to crawl these pages, it's going to reduce the load on your server. These are also not a great landing page, as I've already covered. And that's why you want to create those pages for your regions, for your categories. That's where the real bang for your buck comes in for SEO. Typically, these pages, search results pages, are typically just a list of content, a list of pages, a list of listings. And Google says it doesn't even want you indexing these, and they can actually penalize you, for those. So definitely, I would basically just consider like everything that I've disallowed here, that I've blocked. This is my recommendation. This is how I set up my own sites, my client sites. Unless they tell me they are using some of these specific tools, okay, like SEMrush, Ahrefs, that type of thing. Okay, next up, last here, this right here. This is what I had to reach out to SEOPress for clarification, just because it's unique. It's something unique I've seen in their plugin. So when all of these here say block, why would these say allow? Okay. These are not really needed. They're very special use case, okay? These bots are not blocked by default, as you might think. When I see these here, my mind goes to, okay, well, this is saying that these bots are automatically blocked, and that's not the case. So I think, okay, I need to click these to enable these to not be blocked. But the only reason these ever need to be clicked is if you have other rules up here in your robots.txt that have another disallow directive, and you need to specifically come in here and override it and say, yeah, let's let this Google bot for images or AdSense work, allow it to the crawl budget to crawl those pages and stuff, right? So that's it. That's the part where I reached out to SEOPress and got a quick, really nice response from them on what that means. And those should probably rarely, if ever, be needed. But I wanted to point that out because I've had clients that were confused. I've been confused by it. So that is that. And if you search the web for it, nothing comes up. So you're just left with, okay, well, the web doing searches on the webs, it's not telling me that these bots are blocked by default. So then we come back here, and it's like, well, why are these directives here? And that's why those are here. So my winded way of saying you probably will not need those ever. Okay. All right, guys. Thanks for watching. Again, this is for SEO purposes, and it is also for performance reasons, which also plays into SEO. It's a cycle. All of this stuff that you allow to crawl your website is using your server resources, and more often than not to benefit someone other than you. So that's why we talk about this. Okay. Go out and do this in SEOPress. Do it in your SEO plugin of choice. Go out and get a plugin. There's free plugins for Virtual Robots.txt files. Do not go out and get plugins like that if you've already got a plugin, an SEO plugin that will do that for you. Check your SEO plugin first for that. Remember what I said about the physical robots.txt. That supersedes, that takes precedence over the virtual file. So keep that in mind. If you're on Kinsta, you don't have to worry about that physical file. Just go out and set up your virtual. Okay, guys? Hope you found this video useful, and I will catch you in the next one.